On the frostiest morning of the year, when the city streets were coated in a thin layer of ice and the sky barely glowed with sunlight, a single father named Reid pushed open the door of Haven Corner Cafe, a small, weathered place tucked between a laundromat and a shuttered bookstore. He was tired, bone-deep tired, from juggling 2 jobs and raising his little daughter, Sophie, all on his own. But that morning, he froze. By the window, a young woman sat hunched over a chipped mug of coffee, rain droplets still clinging to her damp coat. Her name, he would soon learn, was Isabella Grant. She clutched her knees, shivering, her eyes distant yet alert, as though bracing for the world to fail her at any second. Lucas didn't know what compelled him to stop, but something in her presence mirrored the long, sleepless nights he and Sophie had endured. He couldn't walk past her. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the transformative power of compassion, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Lucas approached her gently, carrying a plate of the simple breakfast he always bought for himself, 2 slices of buttered toast. He offered it to her with a soft smile. At first, her eyes widened in fear, then confusion, then a subtle, trembling gratitude that tightened his chest. "My name's Isabella," she whispered, barely audible, her voice thin but polite, as though speaking itself was an intrusion. She didn't explain why she was soaked, or why hunger had hollowed her expression, or why her hands shook as they brushed the bread. She only said, "Thank you," and the words were fragile, like they might shatter in the air. From that day forward, Lucas found her every morning in the same spot, cold and quiet, gazing out the rain-streaked window as if waiting for someone who never came. Every morning, he brought an extra sandwich, pretending he had mistakenly ordered too much. Isabella never demanded help, but she never refused it either. She ate with the desperation of someone who had long stopped believing anyone would care. Lucas had barely enough for himself and Sophie, but kindness cost nothing. And for him, helping Isabella felt more natural than ignoring her suffering. Over the next weeks, he noticed small things, the way her coat always smelled faintly of damp fabric, the subtle bruises she tried to hide, the way her eyes carried nights of unseen tears. Sometimes she flinched at sudden noises, or avoided looking at anyone directly. Lucas didn't pry, he simply made sure she ate, warmed her hands around a cup of tea, and left the cafe with at least a little strength. And though he didn't know her story, he recognized pain because he had lived it, nights when Sophie cried from hunger, paychecks that didn't stretch far enough, the crushing weight of the world pressing down on shoulders too small for it all. One morning, rain pounded harder than ever. Isabella appeared weaker, her eyes swollen, fingers trembling as she held the cup Lucas placed before her. "I don't deserve kindness," she whispered. "You deserve at least one person who cares," Lucas replied, quietly. She said nothing further, but the tears ran freely. He pretended not to see. Days became weeks, and the routine transformed into a quiet bond. 2 fractured lives intertwined by small, consistent acts of care. Then, one morning, Isabella didn't appear. Lucas waited longer than usual, glancing toward the door every few seconds. She didn't come the next day, or the day after. Anxiety twisted his stomach. 3 days later, the cafe door swung open with authority, drawing every eye. First came men in sharp suits, their expressions guarded, scanning the room like protectors. Behind them walked 2 lawyers carrying heavy files. And there she was, Isabella, standing between them, composed, clean, and finally able to breathe. The lead lawyer approached Lucas, explaining that Isabella had been missing for months. She was the daughter of a wealthy businesswoman and had escaped an abusive fiancé who controlled every aspect of her life. She had been in hiding, terrified and ashamed, until she met a stranger who treated her like a human being. Every morning, Lucas had fed her. Every small act of compassion, given without expectation, had preserved her dignity and reminded her she was worth saving. The family wanted to thank him. But Isabella stepped forward first. "You saved my life," she said softly. "Your kindness reminded me I mattered. That each morning I had the strength to survive because someone believed in me without asking anything in return." Her mother insisted on offering support, paying for Sophie's schooling, helping Lucas with debts, and moving them to safer housing. At first, Lucas refused, overwhelmed. But Isabella placed her hand over his, whispering, "Sometimes accepting help is also an act of courage." From that day on, their worlds intertwined. Isabella returned to the cafe freely, no longer afraid. She befriended Sophie, becoming a gentle presence in their modest home, a living reminder that the smallest acts of kindness can change lives forever. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing real, emotional stories that inspire. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Lucas' place?